Few countries in this part of the world are more pro-American than Georgia, but the current ruling party is steering the country towards Russia, far off the course the Georgian people prefer. Georgia Dream's adoption of a foreign agents law has evoked strong rebukes and sanctions from the U.S. Tens of thousands of Georgians have protested in response over the past several months, and Georgia Dream's refusal to support Ukraine's fight against Russian aggression has soured relations with most of its Western partners. Next week, Georgians are heading to the polls to decide if they'll reset their trajectory back to the West or continue northwards towards Moscow. Opposition leadership here in Tbilisi is confident they'll collectively retake power.
The polling numbers at the moment are very promising for opposition, for pro-Western, pro-democratic opposition. If Georgian Dream remains in power, there is no prospect for Georgia to remain independent, sovereign nation. And of course, there was a pressure from the society on political parties to take much responsible stance with the view such challenges. Now I see much bigger political maturity, of course in the society, but in the political elite and in opposition as well, to say that first thing we have to do to get rid of this pro-Russian authoritarian regime and to restore the international community's confidence in Georgia, that Georgia can thrive as a democracy, as a market economy country, as a country who can be part of NATO and European Union when all the necessary reforms are done.
Right, so you brought up Ukraine, and it's, I have to think about the fact that even in my own country, the United States, you think about, we were talking earlier about Germany, and then currently you have Georgia, where, Georgia, we all have something in common, that's Russia, right? And for those back in the United States who are wondering why they should really care about what's going on here, can you speak to why it's important that we be mindful that you have Russia that is strongly supporting kind of far-right figures in each part of this country, and then waging war in places like Ukraine and trying to sow division and trying to force concessions? Because here in Georgia, you're dealing with this like an authoritarian region that's threatening democracy, right? And Russia also is controlling more than 20% of Georgian territory. And so what's the consequence of this election for the rest of the world, including the United States?
United States invested a lot in Georgia. First of all, its reputation, and especially after Rose Revolution of 2003, when Georgia started reforms to come closer to NATO and European Union membership. And the US support was vital in those reforms. When in 2012 we had the first peaceful transition through elections, transition of power, US kept hope that Georgian Dream will continue the same type of reforms and will bring Georgia closer to the European Union membership and the NATO membership. We as an UNM, I'm former government official from Saakashvili's cabinet, we knew already in 2012 that the Georgian Dream was not democratic, liberal political force. And at a certain moment, when time comes, they will behave like they are behaving right now. But from inside the country, we tried to keep um, our democracy alive with public debate, with, with defending freedom of speech, political participation, etc. And US and European Union as well, they continued supporting Georgia as they've been doing for the rest of our independence years. But now the Georgian Dream crossed the line which is not compatible with democratic liberal values. Because if you want to be part of the West, then you have to respect free media, civil society, political pluralism, free and fair elections. And if Georgia fails now and becomes not half or hybrid authoritarian, but truly authoritarian after these elections, as Georgian Dream is campaigning on, then reputation of US also, who advocated for the values in this country, is also tainted. The other countries who are also semi-autocratic or semi-democratic, some leaders in the region may think that, look, US invested a lot in Georgia and they lost Georgia. First of all, Georgians lost Georgia, but US as well, European as well. So I know that if in US, Taiwan or Ukraine comes first to mind when we are talking about the global reputation of US. But Georgia matters as well, because Georgia was declared beacon of democracy in 2000s after Rose Revolution, after the reforms, democratic reforms and market-oriented reforms we did in this country. And now with the reverse, it will be not only of the loss of Georgians, but it will be the loss of the West as well.
Georgia was this region's biggest Washington ally up until 2012, when Georgia Dream took over after pro-Western President Mikhail Saakashvili lost the trust of the people after his own democratic backsliding. Washington is desperate to resurrect those relations so they can have one more European ally on Russia's doorstep. Instead of single-party rule, the nearly 20 or so opposition parties on the ballot have decided to form different coalition groups that voters can choose from. Georgi Gaharia, leader of For Georgia and a former prime minister from the ruling government, has decided his party won't join the coalition and stand alone on the ballot.
Our assessment is that we will play the kingmaker role between these two radical big parties such as GD, Georgian Dream, and UNM. This is, you rightly mentioned, this is very decisive elections for this country. This is only one way how we Georgians can peacefully bring this country back on the right track of democracy and Euro-Atlantic trajectory. So I'm very optimistic that the consensus for last 3 decades after gaining independence, Georgian citizens that our future and future of this state should be in the great family of European democracies such as the European Union, and Georgian citizens will support this decision of our history and of our last 3 decades. So this unpredictable behavior of Georgian Dream when they are questioning countries' consensus regarding countries' European future, aiming only one, how to maintain power, how to continue this, corrupting money, etc., etc. So I'm sure that the Georgian citizens will answer such behavior of current government.
The elections are proportional here, meaning all 150 parliamentary seats will be awarded based on the total percentage of votes a party receives. Washington will be paying close attention to the results, as its foreign policy on Ukraine and regional security overall will be strongly informed by who ends up getting a majority of seats in parliament. For Georgians, These elections will decide the fate of their political future.
This is very decisive elections for this country. This is only one way how we Georgians can peacefully bring this country back on the right track of democracy and Euro-Atlantic trajectory.
Around the world, there's this fight against authoritarianism. You see what's happening in Europe, across the rest of Europe, for example. Even in the United States, my own country, we're having this conversation about fighting for democracy and pushing back against authoritarianism. And so my question to you is, how critical is Georgia's fight for against authoritarianism, and what would it mean for the rest what it would mean for America, for example, which at one point Georgia was a key ally of the United States. It's no longer the case, but how important is Georgia's fight against authoritarianism as it pertains to America's allyship?
Excellent question. Why? The main fight for Georgians is against authoritarianism for this very moment. Why? As you mentioned, Georgia always was a very important ally of the United States. And why? We always, for the last 3 decades, we were working to bring this country from South Caucasus context to the Eastern European context. And by the way, we were very successful in this, because you know that Georgia always was a leader in associated trio. When we are talking moving country toward Europe, it means to make country more democratic and less authoritarianism. Now, these elections about the fight between democracy and autocracy, and this will be existential choice of citizens of this country. And I'm very much hope, because if we take a look on latest polls, latest I mean last 10 years, 15 years, 85% Georgians are voting for countries' European and democratic future. Yes, of course, this is a very difficult region. Our neighbors, but Georgia always was the excellent example for whole region, how democracy works and how can you transform your country when you have democratic rule in the country. So that's why when we are saying that this is elections about bringing country back on the right track of democracy and Euro-Atlantic trajectory, it means at the same time bringing country back as always was good ally of United States, European Union, NATO, etc., etc. This is the main goal. For sure, most Georgians will vote for countries' democracy, will support countries' democracy, and they will vote for countries' Euro-Atlantic future. I'm sure this.
So a real sticking point right now with Washington and Georgia is the current Georgia Dream's position on Ukraine. Pretty much lukewarm. There's some who would say that it's pretty much pro-Russia. It doesn't really criticize Russia for the invasion of Ukraine. What should Georgia's position be on Ukraine and NATO, and what would be your role in that Ukraine policy? Can you just tell us, like, in a for Georgia government, what would that look like?
Yes. In this very difficult region, and at the same time, you know that 20% of soil of this country is occupied. It's very specific environment, but any government should aim not to isolate its country. When you're staying alone face to face with Russia, this is a huge problem. And everything after Ukrainian war, especially before Ukrainian war, you have to invest in your good and trustful partnership and strategic partnership with your allies. For this country, because we are occupied country, you know that we had this terrible 2008 war against Russia. And that's why every Georgian government has to invest in good relations with West, European Union, Washington, D.C., first of all, NATO, strengthening countries' capability to be more protective from Russia's invasion. So now what Georgian Dream is doing, and for us there is no difference what is the real motivation behind their behavior, but the fact is that they are damaging strategic partnership with the United States, they are damaging strategic partnership with European Union, and as a result we have isolated country face to face with Russia in very dangerous situation. Nobody knows what will be the level of Russia's interference even in these 26 October elections. Nobody knows what will be Russia's behavior after Ukrainian or during Ukrainian war. So in such geopolitical fight between autocracy again and democracy, every government should invest in strengthening the country's capability to protect. But in case of small countries as Georgia, of course, we have to invest in trustful and strong.
Would that investment include pursuing NATO membership?
Membership, this is a process. And you know that until 22, our cooperation with NATO was excellent. Each and every year we were progressing, and each and every year we were close and close to final goal of this nation, membership. Now, Georgian Dream last 3 years, they are only damaging the quality and level of partnership.
And how would you refix it? Like, you know, because that's the number one question that people are asking, right? So like, would that, so like, because the membership would be, because it's something that most Georgians are clear about, not only NATO membership, but European Union membership. And so would you basically refocus Georgia's track, because that was the track that most Georgians are pursuing. So, because I'm not hearing it from you, like, would you pursue membership?
Yes, of course. Why I'm talking about this so easily? Because in my time, when I was in cabinet, Georgia was the leader of associated trio between Moldova, Ukraine, and Georgia, and nobody could imagine then, in case if a real accession negotiation with the European Union would be started, it possible without Georgia. It was impossible to imagine, because Georgia always was a leader. The same story with NATO. If you take a look, 2018, 19, 20, it was excellent years when it comes to Georgia-NATO cooperation. For me personally, my team and our political party, to restart this negotiation, it takes several months. All these people in NATO, in European Union, they know us, they know our values, they know how we protective always be regarding Georgia's NATO and Georgia's European partnership. Why? Because the main goal of this nation last 3 centuries was how to link directly this country with the European Union. Why? Because only one way for prosperity, economic development, at the same time security. Nobody can secure the security of this country without strong and deep cooperation with the European Union and NATO. That's why we were investing so heavily in good cooperation, in good relations and trustful relations with NATO, first of all, as a security dimension, as well as European Union as an economic and political.
So definitely you would pursue joining NATO membership in a new government in which the opposition is the... Yeah, got you, yeah.